Out in Broomfield, where the foothills rise, there's a little place with open skies.
I'm Dr. Decibel, and this is The Refuge. Today, we're exploring the core value of celebration, the practice of noticing goodness, honoring resilience, and making the moments that remind us who we are. To help tell the story, I'm here with two people who help carry the heartbeat of The Refuge every single day. Bo is our Director of Community Engagement, a connector, a bridge builder, and someone who helps make sure people feel seen and part of the story. And Sherrey is our Director of Communications and Operations, the person who holds the systems, the details, and the behind-the-scenes work that keeps this community moving with intention and care.
A wooden door, a welcome sign. It's more than walls, it's hearts combined.
All right, let's get this party started. Bo, why don't you kick it off? Tell us just a little bit in your own words about who you are and what it is you do.
Hi, I'm Bo. I'm the Director of Community Engagement with The Refuge. I have a beautiful wife who's my hero. Her name is Ange. We have 3 children, Olivia, Noah, and Luke. We recently added a dog about 6 months ago, Ellie. And before being with The Refuge, I was a stay-at-home dad for 2 years, which has been just the absolute pleasure of my life. And before that, I was a church leader, a church planter, just overall, basically a professional nuisance. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Sherrey.
I am Sherrey Neckers. I've been with The Refuge for 5 years. I interviewed for The Refuge when my kid was 5 weeks old and started working for them when she was 6 weeks old. And we have settled in as a family of 3, my husband and my kiddo and I, into the Refuge community. And it is so much of our life and who we are. And we live in small town, Berthoud, a little bit north of Broomfield. Not really small town, but we love it. And we love even more that we get to be connected to the Broomfield community in the way that we are through The Refuge.
So in this series, we've broken down all the core values. This is episode 7. To me, this one seems the least maybe obvious. So let's talk about how celebration shows up in community engagement.
So I think before we jump into how it shows up in community engagement, I think first, maybe even defining what celebration is, and it probably will be different for everyone. It'll probably be different for Sherrey, but at some level, celebration is also, I think, a core value of just what it means to be human. I think that the world, as we know, is hard enough as it is out there. And so one of the things that in particular, I think for my personal life and for The Refuge, I think one of the things that kind of has cross-pollination and really mirrors one another well is the fact that there's just those spaces where we celebrate the mundane of life. We celebrate the small. We celebrate that which is just almost as essential as breathing. I think that's how much celebration is important, because it's a really, really tough world. And when we're walking with a lot of our friends that have experienced some really interesting, difficult, unique, hard places in life, celebration it almost has to be there, because it's what keeps us human and it's what keeps us connected. And so that's how I would say, just to begin with, how celebration shows up in my life, in the life of The Refuge, and then we can get in more specifics of how that celebration unfolds as we keep going.
It seems like just showing up is a form of celebration, at least at The Refuge. That's what I see all around is a lot of showing up, and that is celebration and a reason to celebrate.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's talk a little bit about, how volunteers and the participants create unexpected joy.
Yeah. Well, I think a part of that unexpected joy, like you said, is just showing up. That's one of the core values. It's one of what it means, I think, to be human too. And so, because we are a bit of a transient community at times too, it may be, you may see the same person every day. It may be 2, 3, 4 weeks. You may not see a friend that you would love to see for a few months. And so when you actually see that person again and you're able to reconnect with that friend, there is something about a joy that just overcomes both of you and just the community at large. And so I think that, as you said, just presence, there's something about our physical presence, being in the same space, connecting in that way that just really lifts everyone. And so I think that automatically that is an example and an experience of joy. I would say that even within our volunteers, as well as our friends, as well as our staff, this is a choice. It's a choice to be a part of this community. It's a choice to show up every day. It's a choice to also in the way by which you show up, because we're not asking ourselves or anyone else to show up in a way that is inauthentic, to show up in a way that isn't true to who someone is. And so I think that too expresses itself in joy, because when we can show up being our full self, not having to hide who we are, not having to pretend to be someone else, but just showing up as we are, and allowing our presence to be enough, then that also just really begins to just kind of pave the way for all of us to experience joy, because we're able to show up and express our humanity. We're able to express our perspectives, our opinions. We're able to share things that are difficult. Just last week, I'm thinking of 2 examples. One was we had one of our close friends within the Refuge lost a family member. They had no idea where they were. And so he was able to express that, and we were able to rally around that. And about 48 hours went by, and we weren't sure where our friend's family member was. And that was hard, but we held that together. He didn't have to hold that alone. We didn't have to hold that alone, but we could hold that together. And then obviously when we got the news of where our friend was found, that was a joyous occasion. And then my second example would be, this was just a few days ago. I got a text from a friend at the Refuge and said, "Bo, could you please call the hospital? I've got someone that I really care about that's in the hospital, but I can't physically call. Could you please call?" And I said, "Of course." And so I called just to check in to see how, because they were having surgery, and I was able to call and then call them back and say, "I don't know a lot, but I know that the surgery went well." And so again, just small examples of how joy shows up because we're able to do it together.
Sherrey, let's talk a little bit about being behind the scenes. I've, in recent months, spent a lot of time at the Refuge. I haven't seen you there a whole lot, but I know that you're a powerful force within the Refuge. Let's talk a little bit about, how behind the scenes makes celebration possible.
Yeah, I tend to enjoy hiding sometimes. But when it comes to the Refuge, we do try to make it down to as many events and gatherings as we can. My kiddos started preschool this year, and it was a really big shift for us to not be going to the cafe as often as we used to, because it was our community. We used to love going down there and just spending time and spending the morning, and we missed that a lot. And things will change, and I'll get to go show up a little bit more often soon. But I think there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, of course, that people don't know about, which is kind of the nature of something being behind the scenes. But this was hard for me to think about, really, because I personally have had to learn how to embrace celebration since becoming part of the Refuge. again, I liked to hide. I didn't want to be seen. And the Refuge and the people of the Refuge have pulled me out of that place being an unhealthy place, and have shown me that there are a lot of things worth celebrating, and that celebration is good, and it is sacred, and it is fun. And so behind the scenes, we are keeping the organization running so that we can continue to be a place for people to show up
and celebrate
and be people and be seen. And there's just a lot that goes into running an organization. And yeah.
So since you've had to pull away from the cafe, how do you balance that, the need of the logistics, and now you're missing out on witnessing the joy of celebration and community? Like, where do you find that balance?
I would say that I'm, despite not being there physically a lot, I am rarely disconnected. I am consistently and constantly in communications with people, emails, texts, phone calls, all of the ways of communication, and the number of Voxer threads our team has it's a lot, but we create space to share celebrations and reasons to celebrate with one another. It is because it's one of our core values. It's so important for us to constantly be in communication about all of those reasons to celebrate, small or big, depending on the way you look at things. But yeah, I think we have a really solid team, and we have a really solid community. And once you're a part of that, it's kind of hard to be separate. It all just kind of blends together.
I think that there's a lot of misconceptions and things that people from the outside don't understand. There's a cost to celebration in time, labor, resources, and coordination. And that's no joke. Let's talk about that a little bit. What does it take from a logistics standpoint to run the Refuge for a day? Let's snapshot for a day.
A day. So many emails. There is a really high cost. There is. And we have an incredible team who can gather together, and the cost is somewhat offset by our passion. And we are very often, I take that back, we are constantly looking for different ways to be sustainable so that this thing can keep going. So our days are filled with communications with community partners and trying to discover new ways that we can collaborate creatively, and looking for grants and applying for grants, and being in communication with donors, and reaching out to individuals who have reached out to us in the past and have been looking for a way to connect, whether it be in community or with time or resources of any kind. It's a lot of connecting.
As we've experienced throughout the course of this podcast series, storytelling plays a huge role in all of this. Bo, let's hear another story from a Refuge program where celebration shifted the atmosphere.
The one that comes to mind is it's a natural rhythm now within the cafe. So the second Tuesday of every month at the cafe, we celebrate birthdays, and we celebrate birthdays for everyone that's a part of the cafe. Whether you're there as a staff, whether you're there as a volunteer, whether you're there as an intern, whether you're there as a community partner, whether you're there as a friend, however you made it there, we celebrate.
You're getting a song and a cupcake.
You're getting a song, a cupcake, and And if you'd like to give a speech, you're given that as well. And so I think that just, again, a small way to celebrate. But again, another opportunity to simply celebrate our shared humanity and the fact that someone's birthday, for instance, can be celebrated. And so I think that it's one of the most joyous times that you see the cafe, because everyone has a chance to either be celebrated or to celebrate someone else. And that does shift the atmosphere. It begins to shift. And there's a gratitude that often comes with celebration. There's a joy that often comes with celebration. And so that would be one example that I've seen the atmosphere shift within the cafe.
I really like that example, Bo, because for me, the other beautiful thing about that is that the folks who put that on every month are doing it. John and Carrie Pepperdine are doing it to celebrate the life of their son, who they lost to overdose several years ago. And so that's where the celebration was born from this really hard situation. And through that, they are transforming their story, and they're transforming the lives of the people in our community through celebration.
You can't have that transformation without the celebration and the engagement. They all go equally hand in hand. In order to celebrate, the Refuge needs to sustain. In recent times, funding has been cut. We're sitting right now in a community radio station studio that, like many organizations, lost a third of its funding from the government and have had to adjust. Is the Refuge feeling the same thing? And what's being done?
We're crying a lot. Yes, the Refuge is feeling it. Nonprofits across the board are feeling it. We are feeling it when we apply to grants and we hear back that there's been a record number of applicants or a record number of funding requests, just for the amount. And that's been a hard thing over the last couple of years, for sure, to see happen and to feel. And it's a lot of work to get a grant out. And so to be able to do that and then be proud of ourselves, to celebrate the sending in of the grant request, and then hear back that we're not getting it. And we don't expect to get all grant requests. We don't have that lens of entitlement by any means, but we are hearing the feedback. That is what is happening in the landscape of nonprofits specifically. We have been able to get a few grants, and we are over the moon every time we get the news. Literal tears. I typically get the emails first, and I forward them to our team with tears in my eyes, because we are so grateful every time that our hard work and the way that we've told our stories have appealed to people who have been able to fund us. And we have incredible donors, individuals, and organizations who really step up and have just taken care of us in such beautiful ways. And coming into our 20th, we are kicking off this ask, the biggest ask that we have ever asked for in the Refuge history, for $100,000 for our 20th anniversary. And it is big, and it is a bold dream. And it was hard to ask, because we're also not very good at asking for money. But we are learning how to ask for support, and we're learning how to ask people who believe in us to show us that tangibly. Maybe not to show us that tangibly, but we would love for people who believe in us to support us in tangible ways. And financially, it takes a lot to run the Refuge.
It does take a lot. It's expensive to keep the lights on.
Yeah.
And when a third of your funding gets kicked out from under you, and it happened quick, it was boom, boom, boom. Now it's time to pay the bills a couple months later. So everyone had to react really quickly. I think more than ever, it's important for the community to step up and understand their role in programs like the Refuge. How do you engage the community? Because it is a big ask, especially in a society that doesn't want this to happen in their backyard.
Yeah. I think one of the things that you do is, and this is true for the Refuge, this has been true since the very beginning, is that you throw a really great party. And so as a way of celebration, again, and bringing that back, one of the things that the Refuge started out as was that they may not do everything well, but we could throw some of the best parties. And so again, as we think about our 20th coming up in April 26th, we're going to throw the biggest party. Not only are we asking for the biggest donation that we've ever asked for, but we want to throw the biggest party that we've ever thrown. And that's a way to say thank you to everyone over 20 years that has believed in the Refuge, that has partnered with the Refuge, that has supported the Refuge, that in any way has just, the Refuge has been like, I think one of the actual campaigns going years back was the little engine that could. The Refuge has always been this little engine that was trying to make it, that was trying as hard as we possibly could to get over that hump, and to have a little bit of sustainability would be massive for us going forward. And so that's the way that we engage the community, though, is we throw a big party, we invite all of our friends, we invite new friends, new partners that maybe have just recently heard about the Refuge, have just recently understood what the Refuge is and what we do. And so what we're doing is we're just asking for people to contribute in whatever way they can possibly contribute. So for some, it might be $5 a month.
How important is that $5 every month cup of coffee? Let's face it, that's a cup of Starbucks.
Yep.
How important is that to the Refuge? What does that mean?
I will say that we just a couple of days ago got a new recurring donation for $10 a month. I wept. We have recurring donations for $5 a month. And when that started, I wept. Those donations mean more to us. They don't mean more to us because we appreciate all the donations, but there is something about
that commitment that says, I'm on your team and I'm taking this trip with you.
Absolutely. And the buy-in, the emotional buy-in that it shows is absolutely invaluable. And that is what matters to us. The amount doesn't matter to us. It's just knowing that someone is so committed to us that they are willing to support us in any way that they can and any increments that they can. We don't care if it's even recurring, but there is something about a recurring donation to know we can count on that $5.
It's money you can plan. And that's part of what makes it so important, as well as the partnership.
Yeah.
And the commitment that, we're making to the community and that you've now made to us.
The consistency is key.
Let's take a minute and see if between the three of us, how many of the Refuge's programs we can come up with, because there's a lot. I'm going to kick it off with reading tutoring.
Refuge Reads. Yes. Fantastic. Refuge Rainbow. So Refuge Rainbow is our community around our LGBTQ plus friends and allies.
We have Advocates Learning Lab. It's one of my favorite gatherings. It's skills and support for people who journey with people in hard places.
There's the Single Moms group where single moms can get together and share ideas and support each other.
Refuge Food Share, which is our partnership with Trader Joe's. And so Refuge Food Share happens every Sunday from 4 to 5 p.m.
We have Nature Heals gatherings where we get to go explore outside together in community, contemplatively.
I believe there's a poetry group that has just gaining a little bit of traction where people can come in and spit rhymes.
Ooh.
Yes. We have a practicing equity group that uses the 12-step model from an adapted 12-step model from Melvin Bray. And, they work toward equity.
I believe there's also maybe an AA or a couple of 12-step groups that probably meet there.
Yes, there is one AA group that meets on Saturday mornings, and they're kind of an outside group that has come in and very much become part of us in a way. They meet on Saturday mornings, but there's also Refuge Recovery, which is it's not specific to any addiction. There's a lot of codependency inspiration there. But yeah, any recovery.
I'm going to scoop up some low-hanging fruit and go with the Refuge Cafe, which is a place Tuesday to Thursday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. where anyone can walk through the door, get a hot meal, and access to all kinds of services, mental health, housing, general health. You can get your driver's license, all kinds of things. And we're going to go through this whole list on our final episode. If you're curious about all the programs that the Refuge has to offer, be sure to catch our finale episode and we'll go down the list of everything the Refuge has to offer. But I think to my point here with going through these programs, if you're listening and maybe if you're local and you've been wondering how to get involved, each and every one of those is a way for you to step in. And the Refuge will be happy to have you volunteer in whatever capacity that you're able. If you like teaching, if you like being behind the scenes, there's still plenty to do. And we're always looking for help down at the Refuge. Thank you, Bo and Sherrey, for the way you help this community celebrate what matters. And for reminding us we all have a part in keeping this heartbeat strong. Thanks for joining us for episode 7 of This is the Refuge. If something in this conversation stirred something in you, if you felt the goodness, the resilience, the beauty of what happens here, we want you to know that you can help keep it going. The Refuge is sustained by people who believe this kind of community matters. People who give their time, people who give their resources, people who choose to invest in the work of belonging. If you want to support the Refuge through volunteering, through monthly giving, or through a one-time donation, you can find all the ways to get involved at therefugeonline.org. Every bit of support helps keep the doors open, the lights on, the meals shared, and the moments of celebration possible. I'm Dr. Decibel. This is the Refuge, a community shaped by presence, courage, creativity, and hope. Show up where you are. We'll meet you here next time.